Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and everyone out there, thank you for tuning in. Today on the program, we have a great show planned for you where we will be talking really, just kind of general news and different topics. I have some things I want to talk about as well when it comes to new products, and I can't think of anyone to do all of this better with than the one, the only, Mr. Mike Cermak. He runs, of course, if you ever try to get tech support from Computer America, you can reach out to us on all social medias at Computer America, and we'll do our best. But hey, sometimes we're not as all-knowing as we come off. As we come off. So we send them over to techguy.org to join their community and to, hopefully answer their questions and, maybe even answer a few questions while they're there themselves. So Mike Cermak, he runs techguy.org, and of course, he's a longtime Computer America correspondent and all-around fun guy to talk to. So that'll be in just a moment. But before we do that, computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything, including links, show notes, articles, reviews, topics, social media, and more. Everything that you need to know. And of course, links to the podcast as well. Which, by the way, I think we're on almost all of the major podcasting services. Yes, there are more than just Apple Podcasts out there. There are quite a number of them. So wherever you listen to, Computer America, of course, wants to be there. I think the only one that I'm really trying to get onto, actually, I think there are two. One of them is Pandora, and although that they're a little bit more stringent with who they let on. They don't just let anyone with an RSS feed on there. So I'm trying to get that worked out. So Pandora, hopefully soon. And then I think Roku. Like Roku channels is something that I'm interested in as well. Even though it's I don't want to call it a cesspool because Roku is a very lovely company. But man, some of the programming on there is a cesspool. So with that being said, Computer America, ever growing, ever more omnipotent. And let's just go ahead, bring on our guest, and have fun with it. So as I said before, and let's go ahead and unmute. So as I said before, Mike Cermak, owner, operator of techguy.org, and of course, Computer America correspondent. Mike, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
Doing really, really well, and you're coming in loud and clear. And of course, for those of you watching the video portion, we can see you as well, and we thank you for, of course, setting up the camera and doing that. And
I apologize to the viewers in advance.
Well, hey, angry letters, go ahead and send them to live at computeramerica.com. So, with that being said, it's been a little while. How you been?
Hey, I've been doing great. How about yourself?
Got over that cold, and I never went to the hospital to figure out if it was or was not the coronavirus. But,
I was going to say, have they determined if that can be contagious over podcast yet?
We're going to figure that out today. Cough,
okay,
cough,
great.
cough, cough. So, But no, and unfortunately, it continues to spread. And actually, a number of our stories will be, kind of dealing with that, and also dealing with the fallout, because you have, a couple of stories here, and then we're going to get into some of the tech that can help people and what's happening with that. And then I think there was another one about Amazon and essentially, I guess, like the snake oil of today,
Hmm.
and that kind of thing. So, but before we get started, let's get a little bit of background on techguide.org and a little bit of, your mission. Why do you subject yourself to coming onto Computer America? What do you hope to do?
Just because I enjoy talking to Ben, but also to promote Tech Support Guy. So, Tech Support Guy is a website I started back in 1996. It's a forum, a community of people who go in, talk to one another, try to help one another with computer problems. So, if you have a computer problem, you can go to techguy.org, sign up for free, post your question for free. While you're there, you might find other questions that you can help people with, because no matter how little you know, there's always someone who knows less than you do. And the theme of the site is that there's no such thing as a stupid question, but it's the easiest to answer.
There you
So
go.
we have forums in there for Windows users and viruses and web development and just about anything you can imagine, other than, I suppose, the coronavirus, trying to solve issues in there. Although we do have an area for controversial topics, and I do know that we have at least one topic there about the coronavirus. So
I
maybe we are trying to solve that too. I don't know.
Yeah, random, of course, random discussion, and I found that a lot of communities have that, have that one area where people want to get really off topic. They want to get really, they want to talk about what's on their mind, which may not be tech support oriented. So you always have to have that little nook that people can kind of step off to the side and be weird. So glad to see that
Yes,
you have
much
that.
to the dismay of some of our hardcore users. We have some people who are just hardcore tech and don't want to talk about anything but tech. And then it's gotten to the point where we also years ago created the controversial topics section to separate random, because some people just want to debate. And it's like, this is a tech forum. It's not really meant for debate. Go to Facebook. That's all they do there. But but
Yeah, and I'm sure that you have heard of Discord as well, and it's
sure. Hmm.
it's much the same way. And actually, I would say even Discord is really, it kind of captures the same feeling as like a message board and as like a support forum and forum in general. It's just it also adds the ability to have chat rooms and calls and things that are probably superfluous to tech support guy, but yeah, much in the same vein. So like I feel like, and this kind of comes to mind because there was an article I didn't really read through. I just read the headline, which is about all the research I do, and it was talking about the decline of online communities,
Uh-huh.
and I would say that even, well, Discord is kind of proof of the opposite, where they're evolving, they're still there. You just have to like it really is kind of harder to find them because it's the internet's such a vast place.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think there's a lot of reasons for that. That's been a discussion, of course, among many of the other forum owners and forum people who I talk to. And social media certainly has pulled back a lot of the forums. A lot of
Hmm.
people went to sites like Tech Support Guy just for that social interaction, and now you can go to any number of other social media sites and get that. So I think that's made a big difference in it. But there's still those people who want to talk about something very specific. There's car forums that I think are still pretty
Oh yeah.
popular, and there are, the Tech Support Guy forum is still going pretty strong with people who want to talk about that specific topic. And I think that we're almost to the point where there's a little bit of a swing back where people kind of aren't a huge fan of some of the big social media players. I mean, I won't point out Facebook specifically, but I have a lot of
But
friends.
Facebook's, yeah.
I have a lot of friends who have left Facebook and then spend most of their time on various forums now, depending on the topics they're interested in. So I know gamers as well. There's some gamers that go to specific gamer forums for those specific,
Right.
but it's become much more niche like that, much more, I don't know. Who knows what will happen down the line too, but
It's I'm hoping that they evolve, and really I can't see it not evolving, just kind of continuing on in some form. uh we are people, we are social, people like to be social, and then of course, especially for things like, tech support guy, we are people who don't know a lot of things. So people always need tech support. No matter how good Microsoft gets at, walking people through Windows 10, there will always be someone asking, why can't I hear my sound through my headphones? And, hey, you'll be able to get walked through on things like that. So with that being said, let's go ahead and start talking about some of today's topics. And let's go ahead. And I think, because we did talk about the coronavirus just a little bit, let's talk about, and this is really, talking about some of the spread, because there have been some articles that aren't really tech related, but I think you've pulled one that oddly is, and I definitely like the picture on this one. Coronavirus spread, proof positive, where have those people been? That's all, everyone's talking about, because, you have the first case in New Hampshire, the first case in Florida, the first case in Oregon, the first death, unfortunately, I think in Washington and Seattle. You're having all these. And then, of course, the question is, where did they go? What did they do? Who did they interact with? And you found an article about Uber and Lyft. And, it's unfortunate that the healthcare in this country, not getting into the state of it, but a lot of people do take Uber and Lyft for, things that they would consider, kind of medical emergencies. Hey, it's very easy to take an Uber and Lyft to the hospital, avoid the fee of an ambulance.
That's a funny thing here in the U.S., isn't it? I've heard of a lot of people taking Ubers for medical emergencies to avoid that.
I would definitely do it. Like unless I'm bleeding profusely, I would do it. And apparently, so did someone with, unfortunately, the coronavirus. So, why did this article catch your attention?
Well, so many things in this article caught my attention, but that story in of itself certainly got my attention. I'm trying to put it in front of me right now, but there was a woman. What city was she in, Ben? I feel like it was somewhere in the Northeast, but in any event, was it New Hampshire? In any event, it doesn't really make much difference, does it? Mm-hmm. But she was not feeling well and went to the hospital to be diagnosed with the coronavirus and took an Uber or a Lyft or one of these ride sharing apps to do it. And, in one sense, you can't blame her, because how else is she going to get places? A lot of people don't have other transportation. That is their main transportation. I guess she could have taken the bus instead of infecting one. But that's kind of
right.
But that's the funny thing with this is that, so the concern here is that then that driver, may have become infected, or the other people who shared that same seat back there after she left for the hospital, the next person who's picked up and sat in that seat. We don't know the details of how easily this can be transmitted in different ways, but certainly something to be concerned about. And so Uber has taken the forward step of then, blocking some of these people who may have been exposed to people with the virus from using the rideshare app. There was a recent case a couple weeks ago down in Mexico where Uber temporarily disabled 240 accounts from being able to use their app because they interacted with some drivers who may have been exposed to the virus.
That's so weird.
It is. It's kind of weird. It's kind of, very forward thinking, and it's kind of scary, because if that is your primary means of transportation, it's interesting to think that they can just cut you off and say, hey, sorry. But on the other hand, you can totally see why they would do it. But then what's the result of that? So then those people do go take the bus and sit in a bus full of 60 other people instead of one car. I don't know what the solution is there.
And of course, the United States, their policy for people who may have contracted coronavirus, obviously those who are really sick with it go, get medical help and get, treated properly. But then people who, quote unquote, may have been, come in contact with someone, they ask them to, quote unquote, self-isolate for 2 weeks.
Right.
And I guess this is
because we can all do that, right?
Not so much, but this seems to be kind of like there's a difference between self-isolation, where you opt into it and you kind of impose on yourself, and then there's being ostracized for potentially coming into contact, and then all these different surfaces
not even having any symptoms, not even necessarily having direct contact with anyone, just because of that that third degree of it, and being cut off. Yeah, I think that was fascinating. On one hand, you kind of have to give it to Uber for trying to be that proactive and prevent other people from getting it. I mean, that is how you cut off the spread, but they're doing their part of it. But
I
in a
see.
larger sense, I don't know if that's making matters better or worse.
I just don't feel that's the right approach. Like maybe if they had used their data to say, "Hey, you took a ride on this such and such date. There's a high chance or high probability that you've come in contact with this. Be sure to take the appropriate steps." For them to completely cut off, like if everyone acted as Uber acted, imagine if Visa decided that you shouldn't be out there spending money. Your card is going to be declined at every pay portal, not online. Like
Uh-huh.
any point of sale system, Visa is going to decline your card because you shouldn't be out spending money. I feel like Uber's response is not that response is not kind of suitable to be put everywhere. I guess is my
And I
understanding.
think that really what it comes down to, as much as I'd like to give Uber credit for trying to help people out, I think it really comes down to them just trying to cover their you know what. And in this litigation happy society, if it turns
Uber,
out
yeah.
someone, that this driver, an Uber driver got the virus, and all of these people who rode Uber got the virus, and I can just see that being a litigation nightmare. So for them
Uber
to
does not
try
want to be in the headlines of, Uber is the number one way that people contract coronavirus. Like that, that is not how they want to be seen. You're
we'll
right.
rename it to the Uber virus. No, I don't think they want that. That's not
Yeah,
the
they
branding you
definitely
want.
don't. I don't see this as a positive. Like again, I would rather they give health warnings and they try to make people aware more than just cutting them off completely. That seems and of course I didn't hear anything about this because again, like you said, this happened in Mexico City. It first of all really highlights to me how much I don't pay attention to most things outside the United States. But second of all, um, I'm thinking Uber thought the same. This did not happen in the United States, so they probably didn't get as much blowback for this. I don't
Yeah,
know.
well, or as much notice. I don't think as many people even realized it happened because it was in Mexico. But this sort of thing, is that going to start happening here now? I mean, it's only a matter of time until the same circumstances pop up here, and people are going to be getting cut off from that. And then, should they get cut off from mass transit? If there was some, way of doing that, if you had an annual pass to the metro or whatever, and they could easily just cut off your pass, like, is that the thing that we should do to prevent the spread? I guess we should, but it just
And
seems.
and really data is so interesting when it comes to illness that one of the primary ways to track the flu nowadays is not by doctors reporting my patients have this. It's not by people self-reporting to the CDC. Actually, one of the number one ways that they track flu symptoms is that they take to social media, either Facebook, Twitter, or so on and so forth, and they have artificial intelligence, chatbots, whatever, kind of analyzing everyone's tweets across the entire Twitter sphere. And they count the number of emojis blowing their noses. They count the number of people who use the term flu, who say I don't feel well, and they take all those kind of negative connotation illness like tweets, and they're able to track very very closely the spread of the yearly flu and cold virus. It's a way of analyzing data en masse to get very very useful and up to time real time data. Uh, it's interesting, and again, I wish that Uber would use this kind of data, saying this person has it, they use this many Uber services, this many people may be infected. I wish that they would use it, kind of more proactively in
So how
advisory. Yeah.
close are we to someone else having more data about who we've come in contact as far as that goes? Like, I know that my Android phone, everywhere I go, Google knows where I've been. I can look at my history
Yeah.
in my, and see everywhere I've been, which I
You're
love.
you are probably the last one in the loop to know where you've been.
Right. Well, but I mean, if Google knows all of the, and I don't mean to point out Google, the same thing could probably be said for
It is.
numerous other entities. But if, for instance, Google knows all these places I've been, they know all the places Ben's been, they know all the places that that patient number 435 has been. If they know that I have been in close proximity to patient 435 for an hour, while we were sitting on this flight, then could they send me a notification and send the government a notification and say, hey, this guy needs to be quarantined? And like, to how close are we to that?
So,
Because I think
and
some of that is pretty close to happening in China, or maybe more than pretty close.
China is
And is that a bad thing? Is
I've
that for the
said
greater good? I
yes,
don't.
yes, it is a bad thing. I've said this about China. If you want to see everything that's wrong with technology, watch China for the next 10, 15 years.
Oh, I don't know if I'm agree with you on that. Let's try and fight.
They are, but now I will say that for everyone out there who is a constant listener to Computer America, uh, let's see, last Thursday, so February 27th on the program, we had a company on called the Smart Cities Council. And they are a for profit organization and they work with cities and countries all over the world. And they do exactly what you're talking about, Mike. They help cities transform basic infrastructure and a lot of other programs into smart cities that actually can utilize, collect, and kind of use that data to to do everything from making the you know making utilities run better, making traffic better, making we talked about, I think, like things like child deserts where small towns all over the United States don't have young families moving there, and any young families that do live there are moving to cities. There are entire communities in the United States that are going to disappear in the next 20 years if they don't get a handle on this. So, like, you're wondering, how long is it going to be? We had a guest just last Thursday saying, there are many cities and countries all over the world that are working on this right now, and probably within 15, 20 years, we're going to see a lot of change to that front. So
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we're on the verge of it, and this may put us over that boundary. Is what I kind of wonder. Is that's we're at the point. I feel like so many people are concerned about this, or are talking about it. It's the lead story in Computer America. That how close are we going to be where we really have some technology looking over us and starting to make those quarantine decisions for us, or alerting the authorities to be able to make those quarantine decisions for us. And I'm
sure.
not entirely sure that I'm against it. I just think it's an interesting thing to consider.
I'm always for more information. I feel like just kind of closing it off is one thing. Although I will say that the idea of privacy is making a comeback with Mozilla. I know that it's not a story that we kind of picked up here, but I think Mozilla is starting to really, of all the major browsers, are starting to block personal information gathering on more and more websites. So that's probably a fight that we're going to be having in the next year or two. Personal data and things like that. Should companies have a right to that to begin with? But so there's that one. And to branch
Yeah.
off what we were talking about with the coronavirus, I wanted to jump to one of the stories that I sent you, and this is from ABC News, and it's actually talking about autoplay videos. They are wonderful, perfectly. I had
I
the
had
site
that too.
muted, so we're okay. But yeah, Amazon removes 1 million products for misleading claims, price gouging amid coronavirus outbreak. Uh, yeah, I'm sure that if anyone out there went to Amazon and tried to buy like those paper face masks that, by the
Yeah.
way, don't really do all that much, um, yeah, I think they were selling for like $50 a box, and that is very, very expensive. And I'm sure that there have been many other products that just don't work. I'm sure that there were supplements that say that, hey, this will protect you from the coronavirus. This will help you. Man, don't let any good catastrophe go to waste. People are
Right.
trying to profit off this like crazy.
People will always do that in any kind of emergency. I'm sure you see it down there. When a hurricane's coming, the price for
Hmm.
bottled water and generators go sky high, or sometimes even plywood. And certainly, same thing here. I was just at a home improvement store the other day, and went into the aisle where they have the face masks, and they were just all. I mean, there was nothing left, and it looked like a tornado had gone through there. It was like a Black Friday sale or something. It was just bare shelves and empty boxes laying everywhere, and bodies everywhere, and it was just it was craziness. But and I was like, what happened here? And then I realized what had been in that aisle, and I was like, my goodness. And of course, I just out of curiosity started looking at Amazon and eBay, and these masks are not to be had, at least not at a reasonable price. Whereas we have some that we've used for work when we work in crawl spaces and attics and stuff, pulling wire, and I know roughly how much these things go for, and now it's like $35 for one mask, where we would buy
Yeah.
a box of 50, and it's like, my goodness, like things are just nuts. And people will certainly take advantage of it, and that's the free market. But I agree with Amazon here. I mean, good on them for finding 1 million of these misleading items and pulling them off. I think that there's a lot of them up there all the time claiming to cure the flu or the common cold or whatever. There are so many misleading items up there. It's interesting they suddenly took this one on as something they care about, whereas the others they leave up there. But
Right.
it's something, I suppose. I'd just like to see them go further.
Yeah, it's and it's kind of funny that we can, kind of talk about Amazon, and because we kind of have a grasp of how large Amazon is as a corporation. They are, they're massive. The amount of commerce that they kind of facilitate is massive. But then it's kind of funny saying, well, how can one company monitor their own business? Like, how can one company really keep an eye on on really the only thing they do, which is the Amazon marketplace? And I know that they do other things, but really, man, they've gotten so big, it seems almost like impossible of a task for them to self-monitor. So,
Well, and you get an idea of the scale of it by recognizing that they just removed 1 million products that had misleading claims.
this
Like
whole
one,
thing has not been going on for that long either.
like
And so
that's a
for
small percent of their marketplace, but it's 1 million products.
Yeah, and again, like, this has not been going on long enough that maybe it's been kind of uh commonplace. Like talking about the coronavirus has been common for maybe about a month,
Right.
and a million different products have sprung up in a month to take advantage of people's unfortunate, I guess, kind of fear over this whole thing. So, I do want to say though that like I said, there are probably a lot of people who are trying to profit off of this by pushing things that don't really work. I will say, though, I don't know if this is going to really apply to what we're about to talk about. And let's switch gears just a little bit about the tech article that you sent about different keeping germs off of you, I guess, and really your phone. I saw this was a big one here. Uh, this is from CNET, clean phone, happy phone, get a UV sanitizer, and of course a few other products like that. So talk about gadgets and how technology might help you, kind of stay healthy.
Right. I haven't gone yet to the point of getting one of these, but I know someone who has. I've seen them on Shark Tank, and these are the devices where you can put a phone into a little box that has UV lights on it that will, try to clean or sanitize your phone from these sort of, bugs that are out there. And there's several of them that CNET was kind of, I don't know if I wouldn't call it reviewing, but pointing out or mentioning on here. But what was interesting to me in this is, obviously they were writing this story because of the whole coronavirus thing. This is a hot topic. This was a nice little, curvy way to get into technology on it. But what was fascinating to me is going into what we were just talking about is they mentioned while they were writing this article, the prices kept going up. Like there was one device that was $39 last night. And then when I woke up this morning, it was 53, says the author. And the prices, and then they mentioned on one of them that this product's now sold out on Amazon.
Right.
So it's kind of remarkable to me that, I mean, even something as specific as that, something, a UV light for your phone is getting sold out now in light of this virus that's going around. Whereas I think it's something a lot of people would have been interested in anyway, but now more so than ever.
And of course, this one's definitely weird. It's a UV cell phone sanitizer mixed with an oil diffuser as well. Um,
An oil diffuser. You'll have to explain that to me.
well, well, I mean, you're married, and it's. I don't mean to be.
Okay, I was wondering if oil diffuser was what I thought it was,
Yeah,
or because I'm sitting here, I ate lunch at this keyboard, and this keyboard's very oily, and I could use something to
No,
diffuse
no,
that
no, no,
oil.
no, 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 no.
Oh,
Oil
oh,
diffusers, and of course there. Okay, so there are two kinds of people that get oil diffusers. The first one are people who say, I find the aroma of oil diffusing to be, relaxing. I like it. It smells good.
uh-huh. Right,
It is what it is. And
right.
then there's the second camp that are like oil diffusers. You diffuse some lavender, and that would ward off, common cold. And then of course you do some of,
And the coronavirus, I think.
yeah,
You heard it here first on Computer America. We have approved.
Don't do that though.
Oh, sorry.
But you would have different oils for different maladies, and it would of course cure them. Not so much, but I would say the UV thing works. It really does. It doesn't make your phone any cleaner, so be wary of that. But it will make it, I guess, sanitary for the moment. It doesn't
Until you
take
touch it
long.
again.
Yeah, yeah, and really, it doesn't take long, and I can see where all this hoopla over smartphones is a big deal because, of course, the coronavirus spreads via water droplets and kind of skin to skin contact. You shake someone's hand, that's all well and good, you're okay, but then the moment that let's say the water droplets get onto your phone, you hold the phone to your face. There you go. You are now, much likely to be infected. So keeping your phone sanitary, I can see why this article would really be focusing on the UV protection. I have never really looked into the research on if it's worthy of.
I haven't either, and I'm kind of a skeptical guy. I mean, UV light kills germs. That's just a matter
Yeah,
of,
100%.
but but I don't know how much is carried on the average phone. I mean, in one sense, it's the one device that I carry with me everywhere all the time, and probably is in my hand an astounding percent
Yeah,
of my waking hours. So on one hand, I can totally see that, but and you could certainly make the argument that okay, if I get it 99.999% clean, and then I walk over there and touch that doorknob, and then touch the phone,
exactly.
like, but it's still better than what it would have been. Like nothing's ever going to be 100%. I don't know. I can't make an argument
Computer
for it either way.
America's
I don't know the
recommendation.
science.
Yeah, Computer America's recommendation. If I have to have one over all this,
Cover it in lavender, right? Is that what?
yes, essential oils and just soak it. No, it will probably be keep and especially if you're traveling or if you can keep a number of those wet wipes with the alcohol in them,
Yeah.
and just wipe down your phone every so often. Of course, hand sanitizer is probably going to be better, but yeah, not for your phone, for yourself. But
And
you know,
wash your hands at least once a week,
yeah, there we go.
right?
Once a week, and be sure to really touch people in the face. But um, clean your phone with an isopropyl alcohol, kind of wet wipe, and that would probably
Now, so
be
the other
good
thing I've heard
enough.
about using the isopropyl alcohol on phones is that it can damage the screen on them. I don't know if that's true or not, but I had read that one of the advantages to the UV lights versus using alcohol wipes on it is that in some cases, whatever coating they put over the screens, I don't know if it's for scratch resistance or what it is, but it can be wiped off with
Everyone
alcohol.
should be using a screen protector as it is, for scratch resistance. So if it gets messed up, then
Will it
don't
eat away
sue
a
me.
screen protector? I don't know.
I don't know. What's
I
my
don't know. I don't use a screen protector. I hate the
Computer America
bubbles that come
audience,
with
let
it.
us know. Do your phones
I would.
break when you do what I say? Please let me know. So with that being said, let's go ahead and let's see. I think that's just about it that we want to talk about. Well, as far as the coronavirus, luckily that only
That's
took
enough
up half the
coronavirus for
show.
today, huh?
Yeah,
Go
no
to
kidding.
any 24/7 news network and you can get more coronavirus.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and continue on here. And actually, this article I'm very very surprised because I recall way back when like I was like 11, my brother was like
Uh,
13.
I know what
Set
article it is already.
Yeah, Seti at home and being able to download. And I'm not sure what a Windows 98 Hewlett Packard computer did for the search for extraterrestrial life, but you're all welcome. But Seti at home is shutting down. And I'm surprised because
It makes
we
me sad, you
we
know.
haven't figured it out yet, have we?
No, well, maybe they have, and they just don't want to share it with us.
Oh my god! But yeah, so SETI at home, and if you and of course I'll go ahead and
For
let
the
you, Mike,
younger
talk about it.
listeners.
But what is SETI at home, and we'll talk about it shutting down.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, SETI at home, SETI is the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. I actually had the opportunity to interview someone who was working at SETI many years ago when I was writing an article for the Tech Support Guy newsletter back in the day. The one thing I remember the most from that interview is I had asked, do you think that SETI at home will discover some evidence for extraterrestrial intelligence? And they said, no, I don't think so. They said, the universe is too big, that we're looking at such a small slither of the sky at the moment that the odds are just so tiny right now. Not the odds that extraterrestrial life is out there, but just the odds that, in the little bit of information
Who
we're
put that realist in charge of the
I
project? Get him out of there.
But so that's what it is. So what it is, from my understanding, is they have all of these satellite dishes and radios. That's where I was looking for,
Yeah,
that
radio.
they have
Yeah.
pointed out into space. And I was listening, and what they're trying to do is find any kind of pattern in the signals that may indicate intelligent life. So if you see a pattern of a radio signal that's at a certain beat or whatever, that looks as though it's informational, even if you can't figure out what it means, that it was created by an intelligence of some kind. That's what they're trying to look at. And they realized way back when, about, I don't know, 21 years ago, that this process could go a lot faster if they could not just use their own computers, but everyone's computers. And they created this little program you could download and put on your computer. And at least originally, the way it worked is it would often work as your screensaver. So when your
Mm-hmm.
computer was idle, you'd walk away, and your screensaver would kick on. That was back in the day when people used screensavers. And instead of flying toasters on your screen, you would see this Seti search for right there. You got it up on the screen now. You'd see this really cool, colorful rainbow graph there as it analyzes this radio signals and then sends the data back to the mothership, for lack of a better word. That's kind of a funny pun I didn't intend. Back to their main computers
Right.
to further analyze. And I guess they've gotten to the point now where they've got enough of the data from the clients that they have a point of diminishing returns, and now they have to do what they're calling back-end analysis. And they're going to write up a scientific journal paper about the whole adventure. But I don't know. It's kind of the end of an era. Made me a little bit sad to see it. And I do want to mention also, Ben, you may wanted to do this as well, but there are other similar projects that have come out now as a result of SETI at Home starting out. They were kind of one of the first, if not the first, mass computing systems out there for this purpose. And there's many other ones out there. They're called BOINCs.
Yeah,
And
and of course the other ones that jumped to mind. There was one where a little while ago, like they were trying to unravel genomes, just or like virus genomes, and you could like let your computer, of course, kind of idle in the background. Like if you step away from your computer for more than 5 minutes or whatever you set it to, you would of course lend your processing power to trying to unravel molecules, like virus
well,
molecules.
and the one you may be thinking of, a very popular one, was Folding at Home,
Yeah,
the
that one.
FAC, and that was a BOINC project as well. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that one was for cancer research.
I think that they did cancer, of course, and they did some other ones. And of course, it was just, you need the processing power of, to just run a trillion permutations. And, it's just a lot cheaper to ask people, hey, you're not
Right.
using your computer. And really, like, what you're donating would be, I guess, kind of like electricity.
Sure.
Yeah. So, and of course, a different take on this. This was almost like the predecessor to mining, to cryptocurrency.
Yes, that's very comparable. Absolutely. So instead of using your extra CPU cycles to try to make money, you're trying to cure cancer or do other good things or find aliens. But this was all existed, well before the mining thing took off. And
Right.
these days you can't really use your home computer to mine worth much of anything. It takes computers that are designed for that, more or less, to actually be efficient at it. You could, but you're not really going to get anything out of it at this point.
And I guess the same can be said for SETI at Home. And
I suppose that's the conclusion they've come to. Yeah. So and it's just a shame. It seems like I was
well, if
really
they don't
eager
need it
to-
anymore, I mean,
It almost feels like they've stopped looking, though. I
but
mean, it's
so what if we rephrased it, use business speak, and turn a negative into a positive? Mission accomplished, job done. We did it, folks. We
but
analyzed the data.
But sir, I have a question.
Sure. Yes, you in the front.
Did we find the aliens?
We have to write the paper and find out. Really, that's what it is, and I'm hoping that's what they found.
Well, and I wonder you're hoping they found aliens. I'm wondering what percent. I hope they did too, honestly. And I think the odds are very good that there are
I'm hoping
aliens
that
out
they
there.
climbed Everest and now they just have to get back down the other side and kind of talk about it. Like they've done the monumental task of over 20 years getting millions of people's computers to analyze this data for them. Now they just need to kind of do the back end.
Yeah, well, and maybe that's the case. Maybe it's just going to be a matter of time as they do whatever analysis they need to do on the back end that doesn't easily distribute to many computers. I
Right.
don't know, but it seems to me that my understanding is that they've still only really captured information from a
Of
very
course.
small portion of the sky, and it's just I don't know.
Much like the immensity of Amazon, getting the immensity of the universe is also very, very mind-numbing. It's hard to just say a number and it just register to you. So
Yes.
even the SETI project just did a small, tiny, tiny sliver of it. But
And
there you
if
go.
nothing else, even if it didn't result in aliens, I think we can give them a hats off for coming up with this distributed computing idea. I mean, maybe they didn't come up with the idea, but for recognizing a
They
system and being
implemented it,
able to
yeah.
develop it, yeah, and implementing it. And there's no doubt in my mind that that helped these other projects like Folding at Home and some of the other ones that are out there now to launch, whereas they wouldn't have otherwise. I think that a lot of these that the Folding at Home and similar projects may not exist today if it weren't for Seti at Home. So even if they didn't find aliens, they may have helped with some of these other projects, and maybe some good will come out of some of
I
those.
You know, and I kind of like how SETI at Home, like of everything out there, launched in 1999. That was like the beginning of the internet, before social media, before trending, before viral, before any of these things, and it seemed like everyone knew SETI at Home. If
Oh yeah.
you it was so weird that there was no Facebook, Twitter, there wasn't even MySpace at that point, and yet everyone knew about this project. It went viral before anything could really go viral.
Yeah, I think that's true. I remember, pardon me, I remember at both my high school and at my college that they had the computers in the computer lab set to run SETI at Home if there was no
Yeah,
one using it. Some cases invisibly, in some cases visually, and it was a big deal back then. It was
it was
something
weird.
everyone could kind of get together and work on together, and you felt like you were part of a group. It wasn't just your
It
computer sitting by itself. It was,
Yeah.
you were part of something bigger.
It almost seemed like it captured what the internet was going to become by everyone, kind of pulling your resources, doing one big job. I guess it's one of those examples of the internet really being connected. That sure, you could, write on a message board, post on an image board, and you could do that kind of thing in 1999. You could, challenge your friends to brood, StarCraft Brood War, but being able to see that was certainly something different. So the ending of an era, you're absolutely right. I'm sure that a lot of our listeners are really nostalgic right now. So let's
I think that's true.
let's rip that band-aid off and let's go ahead and continue on with these stories. And this next one I wanted to bring up was about Apple and throttling. It's one of the stories that I sent you. If you're watching the
Hmm.
video portion, you can see it there. This was, this was a big deal back then. To give my broad strokes, and then I'll let you, kind of fill in the gaps there, Mike. But from what I understand, Apple was throttling phones based on your battery lifespan. If you had a battery that had been through a number of charging cycles, it couldn't hold the charge as well, as opposed to Apple, behind the scenes saying, well, we can do one of two things. We can let the operating system pull as much power as it would, a perfectly capable battery, and it would crash. It would, kind of interfere with the user experience. Or option number two, which is what they did, they throttled some of the processes. Your operating system would get slower, things would load slower, things like that. Like the processing power was reduced, and what that caused was, you know, it would still run on a battery that was, say, 75% of what it was when it first was installed, but it would be a lesser extent. And of course, everyone found out about this. People would say, oh, that's why my phone, when I updated to operating version 10.2, it feels slower ever since then. And because they didn't announce it, because they didn't say, we are throttling your system for stability purposes, instead, they just did it behind the scenes, and some people saw it as like a marketing thing, where it's like, almost like planned obsolescence. They're
Right.
making your phone seem slower than it actually is. So again, I can see where Apple was coming from, but obviously the optics of it were very bad when it happened.
Yeah, that's exactly right. From a technical standpoint, they almost had to do it to be able to keep those devices continuing to run. I mean, the fact of the matter is, lithium-ion batteries get worse over time, and especially after many, many cycles of 100%, 0%, 100%, 0%. You have enough cycles of that, and that thing isn't going to hold a charge like it once did, or be able to give out as much voltage as it once did all at the same time. And I think that it was the right technical point for them to do that. The problem was that they were so, as they tend to be, not transparent about it.
Yeah.
They, if they had come out and said, hey, we've discovered this thing, and that to be able to allow you to continue to use your devices longer, we're going to make them ever so much slower at times and cap the processing power of it, but that will allow your device to be able to continue to work for a longer period of time than it would otherwise. People would be like, oh, there would still be people unhappy for
Hmm.
sure, but maybe they could have made it an option, like, hey,
But
there,
maybe not
in
a
your
class
settings
action
menu,
lawsuit. Unhappy. Yeah.
yeah, right. Well, but make it an option for folks. You got enough settings under your, Apple's, general settings, battery. Have a little, toggle there saying, hey, do I want my battery to have a longer life or to have a faster CPU? Let me go ahead and pick that here,
So,
and
so here's the thing. It's like I think that Apple as a company, they are one of those companies that they were one of the first ones to tell you you don't need a CD drive, you don't need this port, you don't need that, you don't need this. Like as a company, in the past, whenever they've said we're phasing out this feature that is commonly found, like they were the first ones to drop the floppy disk drive, and they were right. Obviously, floppy disks are not a thing anymore. But they did it while I guess it was still a medium that was commonly in use. So I think it was one of those things where Apple was, we're Apple, we know better, and this is what's better for phones. Feels like it.
yeah, I no, I think you're right. I think you're right, which obviously I think was the wrong angle to take for them. I just sent you an article
I got
here,
it.
and it came to mind here exactly on this conversation. So Tesla also is encountering a battery lawsuit. I was trying to figure out what my Tesla angle would be today. I knew I'd have some Tesla.
Of course,
I
we have
couldn't
to get
find one to
Elon Musk
send.
somewhere in there.
Oh my goodness, he gets me in trouble if I don't mention him somehow. But this is not so much in a good light. So there's a lawsuit against Tesla for lost battery capacity due to a software update. And it reminds me very much of this Apple lawsuit and deal. So there was a software update to Teslas that on the older ones that have had a lot of battery cycles done, that they can no longer charge as quickly as they once could. So whenever you're using the supercharger, it can take a lot longer to get a full charge or close to a full charge than what it did previously before you had the software update. And people are calling it Battery Gate in the Tesla community. And if you search for the Tesla Battery Gate, you'll find many, many, many conversations about this, even in forums. By the way, that's another use for forums. There's a lot of Tesla forums. But in any event, and it's one of these things where the capacity of the battery has gone down a little bit, as being software limited, and the ability for it to be able to take a lot of power in at one time is being limited, presumably so that these batteries can last longer. But people are not happy about it, especially because it's kind of one of these things where it's just getting pushed down from above, and you don't have any choice in the matter.
So, and I'm trying to read this line from the article saying that, as you just said, under the guise of safety and increasing the longevity of the batteries, Tesla fraudulently manipulated the software with the intent to avoid its duties and legal obligations to customers to fix, repair, replace these vehicles, and they knew they were defective yet failed to inform them. So, and if I'm understanding this right, they changed the software so that like there was a new 100%. It would say it's at 100%, even though
Right.
let's say it would only charge to like let's say 92% of what it once
Right,
did.
of what it previously would have been able to, right? Which batteries in and of themselves, whatever the 100% capacity is of a battery, is going to change over the life of that battery anyway. At one point, my car had an 85 kilowatt hour battery. Today, I can't put 85 kilowatt hours into it. In fact, even when it was new, anyhow, it doesn't matter. I don't want to get too technical on things, but the capability of that goes down over time. But they're artificially making it even lower yet to try and keep that battery from dying too soon. Some people say in order to keep that battery from really coming way down in its capability before the warranty comes up, because these batteries have an 8-year unlimited mile warranty on them for most of the Model S's and Model X's, especially the earlier ones where this update applies to. And so a lot of people think they're trying to do this just to keep these batteries living long enough to get them past that warranty mark.
Just
but,
like,
and not only the
you're-
capability
yeah.
is being limited there, the capacity of it, but the thing that irritates me personally more, and I think a lot of the other drivers, is limiting not just the range or the capacity of it, but how quickly they can charge. So when you go to a supercharger and charge them, it what doesn't suck up as much power as quickly. You have to sit there even longer than you would have to otherwise. And that's really annoying because it used to be pretty quick. And now on these older batteries that have been well used, their software limiting it so you can't charge as quickly as you once could.
Yeah, it's and of course you're right. This is very very related to the Apple story, throttling and these batteries lasting
Although
longer.
I do
And
want to give Apple a little bit of credit because unless I'm mistaken, didn't they also agree to replace batteries for free or darn close to free for those who wanted it?
So actually, a couple of good things came out of this. The first one was a class action lawsuit, which was not good for Apple, but hey, lawyers got paid. And of course, out there, the main point of the story is that if you were affected by this, which really it means that if you had, like, let's say an iPhone 5S and you had it for, I think it was like 4 product cycles before they started throttling it, like 3 generations of new iPhones, they started to throttle, like, let's say the 5, the 4GS. So if you had one of those phones and you can prove it that you were using it at the time and you jump through all the hoops, you are now eligible for $25. Congratulations. Good luck getting that. Now, the other part of it, and really the good part, is that yes, they had a battery replacement program, not for free though. They only charged you for the price of the parts, so not the labor, and it was like 79, 129, depending on your phone model, cheaper battery replacements. So that was kind of an okay thing. The best thing I think that came out of this was the fact that Apple, because so many people wanted their batteries replaced, they couldn't keep up with demand. Apple started like the third party like third party iPhone repair places, and they actually started to sell authentic Apple parts and do authentic Apple training so that people could get certified to do this in third party shops, which before Apple had a complete lockdown on repairing iPhones.
Right. Yeah,
So
I think that's right. And it looks like they did eventually drop their price from $79 to $29 back in 2017 for the new battery. But then, as you said, also allowed third parties to be able to more easily be able to do that as well. So I think that they started doing some of the right things as a result, even before this class action lawsuit came around. And
yeah.
we'll have to keep an eye on it and see what Tesla decides to do with it as well. I really haven't heard too much more about it in the last month.
And of course, I know that Tesla listens to this show religiously whenever you're on.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Elon usually calls me right after.
exactly. My best advice for Tesla, this has been a problem like a long time in the making, and they should have seen it coming. What to do with old Tesla batteries, because just because a battery can only hold 80% of its charge does not mean it's useless, but that also doesn't mean that it's still good for its intended purpose. People don't want a car with 80% of the range it did when they first bought it. They have to figure out what they're going to do with all these batteries, how they're going to kind of what is their second life going to be. And then of course for the people who, hey, this is just like if your transmission goes out on your car. Is this a planned expense people have to kind of associate with owning Teslas? And if they do, what's the best way to service all these Teslas? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and that's something they've talked about a lot in the past is recycling of the lithium-ion batteries and the high percent, I forget what it is now, 97% or whatever of the battery that can be recycled and then turned into new batteries and so on. And they have a closed loop battery recycling process in
Right.
Gigafactory 1 and so on. But it's you're right. A lot of that needs to be worked out. And I had heard of of some potential use of the car batteries that may have ended up being turned into the larger scale. What do they call
the larger battery systems for like municipalities and stuff like that? Like for, like, the
right,
power grid?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. I'd heard that they might end up doing some of that. I don't know if that ever turned into anything or not. But yeah, there's potential there. I
They
mean,
had
even
one city in Australia running off battery power, so that was the
well,
thing.
there's several. There's an island. I forget where it was, where it was largely run off
I
of
know that coast
fuel oil.
was I'm sorry, Puerto Rico got hit by the hurricane, and of course, Tesla ran out there and installed a bunch of battery
Hmm.
units to help
There was one of
Puerto
their
Rico.
first ones that they really did with these power grid level batteries
Was that
was an
coast?
island that was largely run by fuel oil, and they would have tankers come out and deliver tons of oil to run generators on the island to be able to produce power, and they
I
were able to
remember
get rid
that.
of
Yeah,
all of that. They've solar panels there and these batteries, and that solved it. But in any event, so it's problems yet to be worked out. Yeah,
absolutely. So
I
and
have
let's
hope
see.
that they will.
And by the way, the island of Tau, I
Yeah,
think.
that's what I said.
Yeah, that one. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and actually celebrate a little birthday. Unfortunately, I don't have the little chipmunks singing the happy birthday song that Craig used to, but I will say though that the PlayStation 2 turns 20 years old today. And there you go. And this is an article from Engadget. They're talking about some of the sentiments, and really, it's just kind of like a feel-good piece and people relating to, to this console. But hey, it was and continues to be the best-selling video game console in the world. Like nothing's sold better since or after. It's really incredible what this did.
That's
Did
remarkable.
did you
I
have a
didn't realize
PlayStation
that.
2?
And not only did I not have one, I'm trying to remember whether or not I've ever played one in my entire
A
life.
PlayStation, huh?
Yeah.
So
I
many of my
probably
friends,
have somewhere in my life played one, but I can't think of it.
so many of my friends had PlayStation, but due to the nature of my relationship with Greg, one of my first consoles was an Xbox. So that put me this weird eternal. I will only ever play Xbox because I got one when I was 12.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's what happens.
yeah, people get into these camps, but yeah, so 155 million units were sold
That's
over the lifespan
crazy.
of, and Mike, do you remember when consoles lasted 13 years and not just 4 or 5 years, 13 years? That is some good longevity out of the PlayStation 2.
Yeah, that's true. You can't. I remember playing Ataris. I remember playing Nintendo, the original Nintendo.
The N64,
Uh,
yeah.
Not the N64, my friend.
Well,
I'm old. We had the one you had to start with the crank.
yeah, oh yeah, the steam
It
powered
was
one.
coal power. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but I do want to say that the PlayStation 2, and really I think that the PlayStation 2 succeeded just how the PlayStation 3 did. I think the PlayStation 2 was in that case where it was one of the first devices to run DVDs,
Uh-huh.
and of course PlayStation 3 was one of the first devices to run Blu-rays, and they were almost
It
the
was a
same price as a standalone unit, but it was
it was a two
also,
for one.
yeah, exactly. And
Mhm.
it really capitalized on that. And of course, it was very, very
So
well
is that?
selling.
I wonder what part. I mean, how much of their success is because of they just were there at the right time. That it
I,
was the right device at the right time.
and people might hate me for this, but I think a lot of it has to be because the fact that it sold 155 million units over its lifespan,
That's
whereas others, such as like the Xbox One, I think is only up to like 13 million units. No matter how good of a system this was, right place, right time, right features. I mean, it just has to be. So
what was
there
the
you go.
time frame between PlayStation 2 and 3?
13 years.
Oh, well, what was that? I'm sorry, my
Yep,
mistake.
yep. That was
Uh,
the product life cycle, and PlayStation
so
3
that
came out.
certainly helped as well. That it was just that Sony didn't instantly push out a next generation console 3 years later.
True,
I mean,
true.
that's part of the reason they sold that many of them.
But hey, you also have to remember there are more people alive today than there were back then. Like population inflation, we have gone up a billion people, and I know that that's
And not just a
probably
billion people, but probably even more so the number who own consoles. or
Right.
potentially could.
And they still haven't been able to replicate that kind of thing. So it's really incredible. So happy birthday, PlayStation 2, and rest in peace. So let's see. I'm trying to.
I wonder how many million PlayStation 2s are still out there being played.
The amount of and there's probably a way of finding that out because of course they're all connected to the PlayStation Network. PlayStation Network is still ongoing, and I'm sure that they have.
And that's still supported. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and I'm sure that there are metrics out there that show, just like when you go to a website such as,
Right.
hey, techeye.org,
Yep.
that, hey, people are looking this on a Windows 7, a Windows 8, and,
Right.
dare I say, Windows 8.1. The operating system and things like that. So PlayStation Network, I'm sure, knows as well.
I'm sure they do know. That'd be interesting to find out. That's kind of remarkable too. I'm sure there's a lot of diehard fans who are still playing these things.
Absolutely. So, and hey, the PlayStation 4, and of course, hey, I think this year we're supposed to hit the PlayStation 5 in the next Xbox console as well. So about 3 or 4 years, that's all you can expect nowadays, not this 13 nonsense. But Mike, there's music playing softly in the background. We are flat out of time. If people want to find out more, where's the best place to go?
Yeah, check out techguy.org or go to Computer America and hit that tech support link up there and join us. It's free and hang out and ask some computer questions.
Join us. That's almost Borg-like. I like that. And by the way, I want to thank you, Mike.
One of us.
Exactly, one of us. For having your video on. It was great to see you, great to speak with you, and looking forward to doing so next month. So until
Likewise.
then, have a great one.
You too. Take care, Ben.
All right, take care. And everyone else out there, thank you for tuning into Computer America. If you want to find out more, computeramerica.com, as always. And hey, we'll be back 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. Catch you then. Bye, everyone.